Chapter 2 Dragon Mistress. Bradley hurried to his class. He sat in the middle of the room, without paying any attention to the chaos that was going on. The rambunctious noise and rowdiness of the students ensued until something caught everyone's attention. Jaws and the usual in-between class activities such as flying paper planes, spitballs, and loud screaming voices dropped to the floor. It was as if there was a void, a vacuum in the room. A heavy focus of their attention altogether directed its trajectory towards an attractive young lady that just walked in. The edgy spectacles almost fell on the tip of her nose. Her hair was neatly and exquisitely tied up in a bun. The red dress shirt vividly unbuttoned from the top, exposing her neck and collarbone area. Lipstick so fiery and bright, it can burn and scorch the eyesight if rudely ogled in her direction. A black skirt shimmying slightly at the knees, covering a skin-tight pantyhose. The red stiletto she had on was popping, as it was vibrant as the rest of her wardrobe. Suddenly, whistles and howls broke out from the class due to this excessive sight for sore eyes. "Enough!" the female dragon yelled as she slammed her fist on the table. "Any funny business will be taken considerably and apprehended to the principal's office as soon as possible. So I expect all of you simpering brats and howling dogs to behave." This piercing remark instantly silenced the immature barking. The males seemed amused, yet aware that this lady doll is not to be played with. The females, however, could care less. They were too busy texting on their Blackberries and iPhones nonchalantly. The dumb smiles plastered on their pretty faces were evident, while this female fire breather dauntingly glared at them to grab their attention. The lady in red approached one girl, while the others shamelessly put away their technologically advanced devices and gadgets, some in their pockets, some in their purses, and so on. The girl had blonde hair that was swept on the side of her face. She was wearing a long-sleeved white American Eagle shirt and some tight navy blue denim jeans. She was also rocking some Ugg boots and had colorful rubber bands on her wrist. She continued to ogle at the LED screen that represented a virtual world of salvation. The LED screen was apparent, with her Instagram visibly showing her messages. Lil Princess Alexis McCarthy XOXO was popping out of the screen, as much as her makeup was in the picture and in IRL, or how the kids say it in real life. With a blink of heavily mascara eye, the device vanished between her hands. It was swiftly grasped by the attractive lady. Then it happened. Time froze. Classmates in shock. Fear and doubt. Tension runs amok after this incident. Click-onk! In an instant, Alexis's smartphone laid on the floor, smashed unmercifully to itty-bitty scattered pieces. The lady in red was fuming. However, she had this crazy maniacal glint in her eye. "Next time, pay attention," the lady with the sharp tongue spat. "You might find something worthy." Her face did not look angry, but crazy. Insane enough to have a psychotic and malicious smile spread across the side of her attractive face. Composed yet twisted, she then put her hands on her hip with her legs slanted. She scoffed and undid her hair bun, took off her glasses, and then flipped her hair to the side. She briskly leaned even closer to the mousy-looking girl's table, leaving her in shock as her tiny hands clasped over her mouth. The dragoness stood over the mousy girl with an intent of malice. She then grabbed both sides of the table and stared fiercely into her eyes. You girls nowadays think you are all that, do you? The woman's face twitched in a psychotic grin as she lectured. Like the world revolves around you and your pathetic way of life. Your futile chit-chatting and OMGs has become a pestilence on our duties to provide you with some worthy knowledge. Do you ever reflect on the fact that your ever so petulant free time is your life once you manage to fill it up with Facebook, YouTube, and that thing that you call Twitter? You consider yourself philosophical and a woman of deep meaning when you post a picture of yourself with a lyric as a caption, not to mention those complaints and crying moans you post whenever your BFF or BF would ignore you and your drama. So that's how it is these days. A selfie on an intangible bulletin makes you a woman with self-worth. The now frightened girl responded in a shaky voice. Yeah? The woman scoffed loudly. Well, if it is self-validation you seek, then let me assist you in that department. Allow me to ground you back to the real world, where your emoticons and abbreviated words won't help you. The malicious woman got closer as she stared a hole through the teary eyes of the poor little girl. You spoiled little runt, barked the menacing mistress. Believe me, the same daddy that bought you this lovely phone, or whatever remains from it now, isn't here to save you. The intense woman then lifted her head and looked down on the girl before her. The dragon lady then folded her arms. The other girls were watching all of this with a stunned expression on their face. Some were scowling hard at this fiery individual. Others ogled in fear. The woman then turned around and walked methodically towards her own table. She sat on it and crossed her legs while putting both her hands on her knees. Fixing her spectacles, she then picked up the book that was neatly placed on the table. The owner of the username handle Lil Princess Alexis XOXO was not feeling too much like a princess after all that. The look of anger was much evident on her face as she was shaking all over. She stood up in rage and was on the verge of tears. The girl then stormed out of the classroom past the anonymous Jezebel. It seems like she is going to cry herself a river, the fiery female sarcastically said while putting her index finger on her neck. Maybe we could drown in her sorrows while her heaving sobs and cathartic weeps comfort her. Or maybe not. I hate drama queens, and I better not see any of them in this classroom. Do I make myself understood? The whole class nodded vigorously, some students in fear, some in confused admiration. Good, the hard-pressed lady simply said as she finally proceeded to introduce herself. Let's get down to business. My name is Daria Jules. I will be teaching you science, biology to be specific. Some anatomy will be incorporated to this field, as we all will be exploring the wonderful world of the visceral human mechanics. In other words for you teeny boppers, the human body. A snort suddenly echoed. I'd like to explore her human body if you know what I mean. I'm sorry, but is there anything you would like to share with the class? Daria nonchalantly interrupted as she was looking at the back of her nails. She exhumed a vibe of being annoyed, more so offended. Yeah, you, said the cocky young lad. The classroom burst with laughter. Yes, Lloyd, get him! Ha! A male voice howled out. Lloyd was high-fiving his fellow bad boy brethren. He seemed like the type of obnoxious frat boys that are usually seen in generic teen flicks. Daria approached the Steve Stifler wannabe. Lloyd, Daria said as she got within a half an inch from Lloyd's face. Well, what a lovely name. Say, Lloyd, show me how exactly you are going to share me. Daria Jules closed in on him, taking up more than the personal space could bargain for. It was as if she was daring him to do something. She was aggravated. She will not be disrespected by an ignorant, brash young man. It seems like she almost wanted to kiss him, as her long, heavily lashed mascara eyes were transfixed on his lips. However, her demeanor suggests otherwise. Her arms folded, signifying attitude. This mature woman wanted to cause this young man discomfort as much as possible, to exude her alpha presence and superiority over him, to make him feel inferior, to make him feel less than a man, a little boy. A look of amusement spread across her face. Lloyd looked in her eyes with a perplexed composition that he couldn't explain what was emoting out of his face. His lower lip quivered and his sunshades fogged up while his mouth was open. He looked as if he was out of breath. His spiky hair stood ever so high and shining underneath the radiant sun, which bathed half of the classroom through the windows. The sun was also bathing his muscular, tanned arms. He stood rigid, as well as his broad chest underneath his sleeveless muscle shirt. Body all tensed up, his hands were glued to the side of his tight washed-off denim pants. This Casanova-looking caricature doesn't look all Casanova in the very least at this very moment per se, but more like a puppy dog panting at the intimate proximity Miss Jules was imposing on him. So how about it, bad boy? Daria whispered in his ear as she was breathing ever so softly. You going to share me, own me, possess me, take me as if I'm a part of your belongings, your property, yeah? Or are you going to eat me up like a cupcake since you like to bite more than you can chew? At this point, the brash young man just rolled his eyes at the back of his head as he sighed in her intense perfume. Daria's face then switched from a look of arousal to utter disgust within seconds. She put her finger on his chest, making the so-called womanizer feel paralyzed. The fiery mistress dug her pointy finger in his sternum and pushed her index knuckle in, causing him to wince. Not a chance, boy, the fiery dragon lady hissed like a venomous snake holding its prey. The fiery mistress pushed him down on his chair. This almost made him fall off his chair before she could say class dismissed. The boys that were around him gasped at first, then started to roar in laughter. Bradley witnessed all of this in confusion. He knew the school was discomforting at times, but didn't know it would be at this level of sheer awkwardness. Now then, Daria said in a stern and businesslike tone, turn to chapter 1. The student in front of me will read the page from 4 to 7 in completion. I expect the entire passage to be read in a loud and clear voice. I won't tolerate shy wimps, let alone boys who claim that they are antisocial and get a pass out of favoritism from their teachers. You will not get that from me, rest assured. Bradley looked up at the teacher with a surprised look on his face. His wide eyes beamed on as he felt a bit self-conscious. Daria twirled ever so elegantly as she looked at the clock and said in a high-pitched voice, Actually, it seems like we are running out of time to have someone read in class, Daria said in a firm tone as she stood up and started to put away the books on her table. So all of you are going to go home and read chapter 1 and finish the exercises that follow it. Anyone who doesn't comply will be guaranteed detention after schools, accompanied with massive deduction in marks. You are to finish the practice questions that are in the small handybook. This will be accommodated with the course outline, the chapter exercises, and the online quizzes for this week. So I expect you all to get it done by then. As Daria Jules grabbed her books and slithered near the door, a loud whistle went off, followed by a yell. The classroom immediately bursted into laughter. The strict teacher quickly turned around as if she was going to be able to spot the culprit in time. She then silenced the students with a piercing stare and proceeded to exit as she clicked her heels on her way out. Lloyd recollected himself as he got up while the rest of his classmates were leaving. Wow, Lloyd sounded groggy from his mini-coma. Oof. Now that is a stunner. Talk about looks. That could kill. I gotta know more about this Denise. Daria, Bradley corrected him. Oh, nice to meet you, Daria. He clicked his tongue and winked. My name is Lloyd. Position, the ultimate lover boy. Qualifications, license to mate. Is Bradley your goof? The athlete chuckled as he grabbed his books. So are you always like this? Like what? Lloyd said in an offended tone as he also grabbed his books. And what's a Bradley? Of course I'm always like this. Unlike you, everybody likes me, especially the broads. Oh really? Says Bradley sarcastically while walking towards the main hallways. What makes you say that? Well, Brado, hey, Lloyd replied with a hint of shade in his voice as he was catching up with the massive athlete. I'm not a beefhead ready to mess up somebody just 'cause they are all puny and geeky-like. Bradley remained composed. His face tightened as if something pierced his heart, causing a ventricular pain. That sensation stung and restricted his breathing. Anxiety instantly fleshed in his body like a snake bite venom through his veins, leaving him incapable to articulate his thoughts. Don't, Bradley warned as he was getting closer to his locker. Or else what? Lloyd questioned in a daring tone while still keeping his pace with Bradley's. I heard the rumors. You gonna bully me like you do those nerds? What nerds? Bradley curiously phrased. Oh, don't act all innocent on me, Lloyd said adamantly. I hear things, those nerds. You know, they're right there. Lloyd then pointed to a group of students near the chess club room. They resembled characters that came straight out of a Revenge of the Nerds movie. One of them was a scrawny little character that had a bowl cut. His protruding front teeth left no room for his upper lip and lower lip to meet. His eyes were beady as a weasel. He had dark brown skin and seemed like he looked like he was from East India of some sort. Another one looked a bit Middle Eastern, with his curly hair and a fair brass-colored skin and a semi-hooked nose. He had a slight monobrow and a bit of a peach fuzz on his face. He had dark black eyelashes that seemed as though they had heavy eyeliner on. The foreigner had acid-washed jeans on that looked like they were sold at a Syrian vendor. Let that sink in. He was wearing a tight shirt with tribal designs on them. This young man was holding a PSP Vita device in his hands. The third kid of the crew had big rounded glasses, very high suspender pants, a white dress shirt tucked in, and a buttoned up to the neck collar. This crew was eyeing Bradley and giving him threatening glances and stares as if they're about to lunge at him at any second. "Hey, you!" I said, "Hey, you!" yelled and stuttered one of the nerds that had the large spectacles. "You better watch yourself, or you are going to see the real revenge of the nerds. You have been warned. Come on, Ben." It seemed like Ben was a small, scrawny, brown-skinned kid with the crooked dentures. "Right behind you, Winston," Ben said as he turned to the Middle Eastern boy with the PSP Vita device. "Hey, Ahmed, you still got that game I lent you?" "I'm still borrowing it because I have to beat it," Ahmed answered back. Winston continued to give Bradley a threatening glare. "What are you looking at, mook?" Bradley stood up, his face hiding his anger with a fake smile. Lips shaking, eyes twitching, teeth gritting against each other. It was incomprehensible to be labeled by anybody, let alone by a bunch of teens that strive and get through the pressures of being labeled since the annals of high school history. Considering all things, they are the last people to be judgmental. Bradley's inner thoughts creeped in. The nerd snickered and scoffed while leaving the classroom. He was legitimately ready to explode like a nuclear reactor near a 4th of July celebration. This fogged his mind. He was not able to articulate his thoughts. Tongue twisted and fumbling over his words as he narrates his thoughts. Bradley then stared at a piercing hole through Lloyd. He then looked down, pivoted in his place, and started to slowly inhale and exhale for a whole minute. Lloyd was afraid. Lloyd had his hands up as if expecting Bradley to turn around and deck him, but instead the massive blonde athlete slowly walked away.